My name is Mike Fitzmaurice. I'm WEBCON's Chief Evangelist and Vice President for North America. If you'd like to reach out and contact me, MikeFitz@webcon.com is my email. If you prefer Twitter, @MikeFitz. Look, if you like LinkedIn, I am Mike Fitzmaurice, spelled that way. Without any further ado, I just have one, perhaps two slides. We want to get this out of the way quickly, because I want to focus more on our products, our mission, and so on. But about the company, I see that we've got some people that look like they have European names and some that look a bit more, well, how about, I can actually tell where you guys, oh, good. Yeah. I can see points of origin, or at least IP addresses. No, not IP address. The point is, I know some of you are attending from Europe, some of you are attending from North America. If you're in Europe, you've heard of us before. We've been there for 14 years and have been growing steadily to being a major player in workflow over there. If you're in North America and you haven't heard of us, we've been, our office in North America has been open for less than a year. We are by no means a startup. More than 100 people work at WEBCON. But we have actively not marketed to the United States and Canada until relatively recently. So thank you for attending. We appreciate it. Hopefully you will very much know about us very, very soon, and this is the first step. We have one product and mission, and we are incredibly serious about this. And this is about automating processes in a big, big way. I could go straight into a demo, but I think I want to do this I want to talk about one thing first and foremost, which is we provide one single platform. There are several specific things that make WEBCON unique and frankly wonderful. This is one of them. There are a lot of applications out there that act as glue, meaning you did the data in one place entirely that's got nothing to do with your low-code environment. You modeled the data in SharePoint lists or SQL tables or something like that. And then you built the forms in one tool and the workflow in another tool, and it's up to you to knit it all together and make it work. You don't have to do that with us. What we provide is one platform for doing everything. Let's slide over here. And I could begin at this point, but I think what I would prefer to do is go right into our process designer. And I'm going to create a brand new application, so you get a sense of what it's like. And let's call this, I don't know, change requests. And well, let's see, I have a folder I created or a group called webinar applications. And I want to create a brand new empty application. Nothing in it yet. Actually, that's not entirely true. There is a system dashboard with one button for starting new processes. There's nothing yet, but we're going to build the whole thing very, very quickly. I'm going to create a new process, and let's call this the change request process, or change requests. The forms in there, see, I'm creating a process, and I'm also creating the forms at the exact same time. It's one application environment. We're going to build the whole thing in one place. The form type name is, let's call this a change request. And let's try to spell that properly. The acronym for this, let's see, webinar change request. The workflow name to run this through. The process is the whole thing, and an application is a set of processes. The workflow is the logic, the form is the user interface. So the workflow will be, let's call it change request lifecycle. And who's in charge of the whole thing? The group of administrators. Now this causes us to immediately get one workflow. There it is, it's very simple. And we also get inside of that workflow one form. This is the basic layout. There aren't any fields in it yet other than the built-in fields like ID and built-in features like instructions to the user and attachments and comments. We get a view of that for desktop browsers and one for mobile browsers, although by default we just use responsive rules to create that. There aren't any data fields yet. There will be. There aren't yet. Why don't I flip over to a different application and I will show you what I mean by that. Let's go to here. This one is all about managing risks, and I can open this up and show you that within here I've got a risk management process map. I've got, we call them form fields, but this is really the data schema. These are all the fields that show up in the form. They're separated by, they're grouped in tabs. Some of them are repeating sections and so on, but they're all nice and neat. And here's how the fields are laid out in the form. There's also a presentation tier where we have things like various reports or data views and dashboards that tie them all together very nicely. This is a complete application from start to finish. I'm going to go back to the one that we're building because I want to be able to build something in front of you. I think you're going to like what you see. But if you want to see what that risk management application looks like, there's the dashboard. Button for starting new items with presets and configurations. Here's a counter of all pending tasks, views of the data. This is specifically the stuff involving me, and this is all purchase. Oh, this is purchase requests. I'm sorry, I wanted to do risk management. There, this is all pending tasks, starting a new item, all risks currently at play, reports on classification and analyses. And that, as they say, is that. This is a complete application, and in fact, we can look at this in lots of locations. We'll come back to that in just a few moments. But suffice to say, the data, the forms, the workflow, the dashboards, the reports, the rules, the everything, it's inside a single application. You build the whole thing from one place. This is that one platform. There's our engine, which is based around a technology called Instant Change. We do workflows, we do forms, we can generate documents, and for that matter, read them as well. We can surface inside of SharePoint, inside of mobile apps, inside of Office apps, and connect to databases and web services and directories. This is the one architecture slide I throw in, but I do want to move on from it quickly and show you this. The process comes first. Check this out. I'm going to go back to the change request environment that we were building. Let's go back over here and notice I don't have the data first. In many environments out there, they expect you to figure out what data you're going to do the workflow on before you know what the workflow even is. If your first question is, what's in a change request? You're probably asking the wrong initial question. What should be the first initial question is, how does this organization deal with change requests or purchase orders or absence reporting or any of a number of other processes that matter? But the point is, the details as to what's in the form aren't important, but they probably aren't the very first thing. What I really want to know of is, how do we deal with requests? We don't just submit them and assume somebody does something with them. I mean, that is a very ad hoc process, but I'd like to think we could do better. So we know that at some point someone composes a request, and we know at some point the requests are accepted. And we know that at some point, oh, I don't know, someone submits these requests. But they don't get automatically accepted. I mean, this is this is not good enough. If we want to make this not a manual process with a form, let's throw in a couple of extra steps. We know that we need at least one level of review, right? So let's throw this in here. And if it's being submitted, we should actually submit it for review. And if it is approved, then we can mark it as accepted. And I suppose we should have a facility lined up in case we don't like it. And so how about, let's see, I'm assuming a lot of you are familiar with the Power Platform or some other things. We can go left to right, we can go top to bottom. I kind of tend to go diagonally, but I think just for fun, we'll do it like this. All right, in fact, I'll move this around just a little bit. All right, so if it's approved, it goes there. If it is rejected, let's call it a canceled request, and I will draw a line here. All right, just about ready to go, actually. Let's see, we compose, we review, it's canceled or accepted. So in fact, if I want to be really careful, under review. This describes where the item is at any given time. So the process comes first. This is what our review process looks like, at least right now. We're certainly going to improve this, but it's a good place to start. So I'm going to save this. And I'm going to do one other thing with it. Let's see, probably what I would, well, I want to test it, to be honest. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to go back here, and I might need to refresh. Sometimes we cache data for a few minutes. I'm going to go here, and I should see my change requests solution. Now, again, all I've got is an administrative dashboard. I can see any recent activities. There haven't been any yet. I can see task counters. There aren't any yet. But I do have one button to launch something new. So let's launch it. Now, I have not created any fields in the form yet. You know what I want to do? I want to get impressions from people as to what belongs in a form. We're doing the process first and the data second. So right now, we can just start with free-form comments and pass them around. So how about we say paint mailboxes red. I'm from Canada, but I live in the United States. In Canada, mailboxes are red. In the United States, they're blue. I'm feeling homesick. So I'm going to suggest painting mailboxes red, and let's submit this, or we could submit it. But what I really want to do is perhaps let's submit it. I'm going to get a little bit ahead of myself because there's no person to assign this workflow to. Now, the process came first. The very first thing I did was design the process. We're going to add the data second. But what I want you to notice is this thing called instant change. Instant change is technology by which we can let an application evolve organically. You don't need to get it right the first time. You can give an application to your users and have them work on it, and gradually improve it, and they get the changes immediately, even in the stuff that's already running. And the first example of instant change is this. I have built a very rudimentary application, and it already has one mistake. Attachments were built in, comments were built in. I didn't have to do any work for that, but I have this one button called Submit, named exactly after this path from the beginning step to the second step. And my problem is, when we send it to under review, we didn't say who is going to do the reviewing. So let's do that. I'm going to open this up. And as I move from one along a path, I can assign this to somebody. So I am going to, there are three ways that we can choose who it gets assigned to. One, it can be a field in the form. It can be a business rule that allows us to do essentially anything we want. And then the third option is to use some built-in roles like your manager. So the very first thing I'm going to do is save this. Now remember, I have a form open. It's filled in. I'm trying to submit it and it's failing. I'm not even going to refresh. I'm going to click submit and away it goes. It just worked. And if I want to quickly see what it was I submitted, you get a nice little friendly pop-up. You can turn this off, by the way, but there, that's the form that I filled out. And if I'd like to see who's got it, here's some other stuff we give you automatically. Information on what this form is, who created this current instance, and where it is in the process, which is under review. Who's got it? Alice. Alice is my manager. Let me back out of this. And I see here in the recent activity log, we started this instance. And when I abbreviated the form name, I'm using that in the ID numbering. There's an internal ID that's a number, but this friendlier one is the type of form, the year, the month, and then an incremental number. And you can use whatever rules you want for this. Now, I mentioned being able to change things in real time, all right? I also am looking at, this is in this particular color. Notice it's more salmon than yellow now. I am, and you'll notice the A over here. I'm logged in this browser as my manager. And so she doesn't even see that application yet, but what she does have is a list of all pending tasks. And at the top of the list, it's this brand new one we just created. Quickest way to get to your tasks is just to say, look at my tasks list. I don't have to open individual applications to see what I need to do. And yeah, here I can approve this or I can reject this. Now, one of the first things I'm going to do, because I want instant change to take place here, is I could reject this. And if I reject it, what's going to happen? It's going to go over here to canceled. And it occurs to me, I don't know if I like this. I'm going to modify the process while Alice is reviewing it. I'm going to do this in a way that is completely non-disruptive. Again, we call it instant change for a reason. I mean, if she accepts it, if she approves it, it's going to go to accept it. And yeah, of course I like that. But she's going to reject it because painting American mailboxes red is a stupid idea. And so what I think we should do, instead of, in fact, let's say we did a number of these and people said, well, now you mean if I just wanted to make a slight change to it, I need to go compose a whole new request and submit it again? Why couldn't I just, if you don't like it, why don't you send it back to me and I can edit it and improve it and then send it back to you for review, and maybe you'll like it better. Maybe the only thing that was wrong was a little thing. So let's improve this just a little bit. Remember, the application's live. People have been using it. I'm going to move this arrow from there to here. That's it. When you reject it, it's going to go right back to the author. In fact, I need to make sure this gets assigned properly. So let's make sure it goes back to the author. Now, remember, I like the fact that this option to cancel is there. It's actually quite useful. What I'm going to do is give the author the option to withdraw it. Whoops, there. Okay, so now if we don't like, if the author gives up, in other words, there's no way that we've gone through this review cycle multiple times. We withdraw, we change, we submit, it's reviewed, it's rejected, it goes back to composing over and over again. Eventually, this person is going to give up and cancel it, but we'll make it their decision. The reviewer doesn't kill the process, the reviewer advances the process in the correct direction. All right, so I've just made this fundamental change, and I'm going to save this. And I'm going to go back to this open form. And when Alice clicks reject, there we go. We've moved on to a different form she's supposed to fill out. But I will come back here to my view of everything, and I notice I have a brand new task. I didn't even need to refresh it. It had shown up beforehand. And I can see here, it's been given back to me. Now, there are a couple of things that are wrong with this. I don't know why it was given back to me. All I see is that it's back on my desk. Now, I have a couple of clues as to what's going on. I can look at the status and I can see that at one point it was under review and now it's back here in composing. I can also look at the audit trail and watch what happened. So it was composed, it went to review, someone clicked reject, and now it's back here in composing. I can even look at the form to see what it looked like at different points in time. But no. What I want to do is this. I want to, we've been collecting some more data, we've been getting feedback, and I know that there are several things that I would like to do to improve this application. And instant change is all about being able to do it without withdrawing and restarting all the work. So let's go back here. This also lets me show off some other things that we can do inside of WEBCON BPS. Thing number one is, I don't need to prepare. Remember, we didn't create a data dictionary or anything. We didn't create a table for people to use for these forms. We're doing all of that automatically as part of the application. The application is a coherent package. Towards that end, I think it's time to do two things. One is, I want to make sure that the reviewer can't just click reject and not explain why. So let's go here to this rejection path, and I'm going to make a quick adjustment to it. I want a comment to be required if someone decides to move along this path. So now if the reviewer clicks reject, she has to absolutely type something into the comments box to explain why she chose that. The next thing is, look, doing everything in comments is silly. We should have some real fields in this, and it's time to put them in. So I'm going to go here to form fields, and I'm going to create not many, and they're not going to be elaborate, but we're going to say, let's see, title. Let's give this a title. It's a single line of text, and I'll create a second one, and we'll call this description. And this will be multiple lines of text. And that's enough for the moment. Let's go back here to the workflow. And those fields are automatically part of the application, but I do want to display them on the form. And now we're already going to put them here on the left side of the form. That's fine. I like that. Let's also do one other important thing, which is here in the field matrix. These are the steps in the process, or in the workflow: compose, review, accept, or canceled. Here are the fields in the form: title and description. Now, a lot of you might want to say, well, when someone is filling out the initial form, require some fields, but make them editable. But when someone is reviewing it, they shouldn't be able to make changes to it. And your gut impression would be that you have to write a formula or a little bit of script or configure a rule to do that. We free you from that in a lot of ways. This matrix here says, if you want title to appear during composing, check this. If you want it to be read-only, check this. Now, I do want this to be read-write, so I'm unchecking that. And then here under composing, I do want it to be required. Description, I want to be there and editable, but I'm not going to require it. Someone might have a really good descriptive title, and that's enough. Now, when the reviewer gets it, I want it to be read-only. I don't want them touching a thing. And for that matter, here under accepted, I'm just going to copy the same things from under review. Same thing here, just copy. All right, so all the fields are there, and they're read-only when they need to be, and they're read-write when they need to be, and they're required when they need to be, and all I did was check some check boxes. Let's save this process, and let's go back here, and I'm going to reload the form because I obviously can't see changes to the form without refreshing it. But yeah, I still see my submit and withdraw buttons, and now I have fields that need to be filled in. You know what I also want to do here, though, is, oh yeah, I've got task details here. I'm being told you're in the middle of composing. This, we can do better than that. Let's go back here to this and go back to the process. See, the model's in control of the entire application. And if we provide a little bit of descriptive information in the model, the author is creating or editing a change request. All right, and here, the manager should review this change request and approve or reject it. It's handy to provide descriptive information because if I reload, those instructions show up to users so they have a better sense of what it is they're supposed to be doing when they fill out forms. Okay, so let's put this in here. Paint mailboxes a brighter shade of blue. And the description will be people have a hard time finding them. I like what Canada does with making them bright red, but actually painting them red is probably unacceptable. All right, now let's submit it. And we're off. We're going to go back here to my manager's environment, and now we see all of this good stuff, and she can approve it or reject it. Now, she might reject it, and she's being told, nope, you need to provide comments, my friend. And that is a big, big improvement. And we can improve this a little bit more. Oh, by the way, here are instructions to her as to exactly what she's supposed to do. Again, we're still talking about instant change. And one big thing about instant change is, well, literally instantly changing things. Here's what I want to do. At this point, I want two things. Let's say we got some feedback from people. They don't like the fact that this button is named reject. They would prefer decline. That's fine. If I save this and I go back here to her form, wait, I did rename this path and I did save. Okay, so now we're under review, and if I reload this form, you'll see that that's now called decline. This is a live form, people. She's in the middle of editing, of working on a process, but I can still improve the application continuously. And then the second thing is, if she improves it, we should actually assign somebody the task of doing the work. So how about we come back here to form fields and I add a new one, and let's call this implementer. An implementer, look, we have many, many, many kinds of data types. We have picker fields, we have survey fields. You can even embed reports and charts and maps and everything inside of our forms without much fuss. But I'm going to choose a person or a group field, and we're going to call this implementer. And I'm going to go back here to the main form, and we'll see that implementer shows up here. I need to make sure that implementer, oh yeah, if you want to see what it looks like layout wise, it's there. And I'm going to go here and say, during the composing phase, I don't want, excuse me, I do not want the author to choose who's going to carry out their instructions. How about this? We make it optional. They can fill it in if they want to, but it's not required. This should not leave the desk of the reviewer without the reviewer saying who's going to do the work, who's going to carry it out. And if it's accepted or canceled, again, I don't want anybody editing anything. So let's save this process. And let's return here. And yes, I do, because there's a new field on the form, I can't just change the meaning of a button behind the scenes. Now she needs to refresh this, and she sees that she's got to decide who's going to do this work. Bill is going to carry it out, and now we will approve it. Actually, you know, we do need to change the process accordingly. Why? Because if I click approved, all it's going to do is move this along to accepted. That's, again, I want someone to, I want this to be a part of the process, the implementation. So if it's accepted, let's add a new step here, and let's call this implement. And this path from implement to accepted will be complete. And under implement, we need to assign this to somebody. And we have that field called implementer. And here under implement, we should provide some friendly instructions. The implementer should make the approved change. All right. All right. And approved. And it's moved on. In fact, if I want to, I can come back here to where I was looking at my entire application, and I see that several things have happened to it. Here's the log of activities, and I can see now, where is it? It's in the implementation phase. I could not be more happy about this. Now, if Bill opens this up, I'm guessing where we should customize which fields are visible and so on during that time too. You get the idea. We have bigger issues to deal with, namely, this is not the way I want the application to work. I would like the application to contain a more user-friendly facade. So let's go ahead and build a couple of things. In fact, I don't even need to go back to the Designer Studio. If I have portal editing privileges, and I do, I can add a couple of things to this that I think will really be handy. Let's create a table view, and we're going to call this change requests. And we're going to show all items coming from this form inside of this process. And We already show the instance number and the step we're in and who it's been assigned to and how many days we've been waiting. But I certainly want the title to be part of that table view. And I also, I want to see, if we've got an implementer yet, then we should know who that is. In fact, what I would also like to know is who submitted the request. And yes, we can open each one up and look at its history, but no, I actually want something a little bit nicer than that. So I am going to take created by and put that in there as well. All right, just about finished. I'll go ahead and add a button directly into that view, and now I will click Save, and I'll close this. All right, here's my list of change requests. If I want to create a new one, there's a form. If I want to open one that's already there it is, etc., etc. I like this. We can do it one better though. So how about I go ahead and make a dashboard? So let's add a new dashboard. And here I do this. Let's call this change request dashboard. And now I'm going to add one zone. And for now, I'm just going to have one column here. And here in this column, I'm going to insert a task counter so people can see how many things they have to do. I'm also going to throw in that table view. We call them reports in general. We'll show the default view. There's only one at the moment. Pop that in. And I'll tell you what, just for, nah, that's good. Let's do this. Let's save this. I can change who's allowed to see this, but right now, if you're allowed to see the application, I'm good. And let's make this the default view, not that system dashboard. All right, now I'm going to get out of edit mode, and that's my view of the application. Much friendlier, much nicer. All right. We still have a small amount of work to do. This is something that is currently being looked at by Bill. Now I want you to notice something. Let's click over here. Bill's environment is in blue. Bill actually, if he opens up this tab, does not even see this application. That's because he hasn't been granted privileges to go look at the application or open forms. But we did give him a task, and he does have to carry it out. And he's got privileges on the task by virtue of being assigned to him. So it is possible to involve people in applications that they don't normally have privileges to. They have a temporary set of privileges for exactly one little piece of the application, the piece we want them to take part in. It's in fact exactly what we want. I don't see any fields. And I'll tell you exactly why this happened. If I go back here to the form definition, there's this new step we created called implement here. I'll move it over here so it looks more like a smooth line moving across. And because I have a brand new step, I don't have any fields marked as to what should or shouldn't be there. Now, I don't want Bill editing anything. I just want Bill to carry out those instructions. So let's go back to this form. Again, instant change to the rescue, and here we go. If Bill's got comments or observations to make, he can put them in here. And if he'd like to see, the whole story of where we've been so far, it looks like it got composed, it went under review, it got declined, it went back here to being composed again, it was submitted, and then it was approved. And when new stuff gets shown, that shows up in green. If things were changed, they'll appear in red, etc., etc. In fact, if you just want to watch the whole thing evolve, there, we're moving through the life of the form, and now we are finished. That's what's going on. So now, couple final things I should do to this to make it ready for everybody. I should determine who's allowed to use the application. Right now, I'm the administrator. Unless I start it and unless I assign you a task, you can't even see that this application exists. Well, I'm going to make a couple of adjustments. I'm going to say that you have the right to use the portal if you are in this group. And this group could be an Active Directory group. It could be a group that is specific to your business process environment. So if you've got the right to create Office 365 groups or Active Directory groups or other groups native to your directory provider, great. If you need us to create them, we can do that too. In fact, if we create them, you can deploy them from one environment to another, and if the names match, it just all goes through. All right, so there, that gives you the right to see the application in the dashboard and open it up. The next thing I'm going to do is go here to the process and give out some privileges. First of all, I will let anyone start a new instance. I will give admins the ability to access and edit all workflow instances. And I don't really need to do anything else. If I want some people to be able to read change requests submitted by others, I can start by putting some privileges in here. At the moment, however, I'm going to say that you're only allowed to see the items either you submitted or you reviewed. If you're an admin, we'll let you edit, access and edit everything, but I could give you read-only access to something if I typed in a name here. So I'm done. And now if we go back here to Bill, he sees the form. And if he comes back out here and opens up the webinar group, let's refresh this. Bill is in the users group. He should see this. I should check what my privileges are. I'll tell you what, let me go back here. Or better still, come here as Alice. And see whether Alice sees the change request. She does not. This is clearly user error. I forgot to put in, oh, I know what it is. I saved the process, but not the entire application. There's a button up here that says Save All, and I should really be in the habit of doing that. Refresh, scroll down, and here under Webinar, I now see the Change Requests application. And if I open this up, I have my option of looking at the system dashboard, or for that matter, the user dashboard. I will make this my default and keep going on about my business. Now, I have a lot of applications here. I can work through many of them. I can bookmark some of them and make them favorites, et cetera, et cetera. There is a way to manage all of this. And in fact, if you don't want to come here to the WEBCON portal and you'd prefer to use this where you work, we definitely have a solution for you. You'll see it in just a moment. But that was instant change. You saw me build an entire application in front of you, and it was constantly making changes to something while people were running the application in a way that hurts no one. And by the way, if I'm developing an application in one place and I want it to go into production in another place, the instant change happens when it's deployed, not when it's edited. All right, let's move on. Next big thing about WEBCON that's worth taking a look at is that our workflow instances are full-blown cases, not just items in a list in a table someplace. Here's what I mean by this. You already saw, when I opened this up, an entire audit trail. You already saw that there are attachments and comments and task details. You already, well, actually, you know what you haven't seen yet? A far more interesting application. This is a purchasing, for submitting purchase requests, making those purchases and so on. Let's open up this item. This one's already finished. We've gone through the process, but in one place, we have master data. What are the details about the request? Or what are the features about the request? The individual line items, the items being requested. But we have data fetched from Active Directory. Who is this user and where do they come from and all of that. We also have information being pulled from our CRM system to describe details about the vendor. We also have some reports coming from the ERP system that show us, at least at the time that the reviewer reviewed this was the data that she saw. This is how much she had spent in her budget that year to date, and this is how much had been allocated to her cost center. We've fetched that data, and in this particular case, we opted to keep cached copies of what was fetched, as opposed to just it being a live window, and if the data changes in the background, then when you open the form again, you'll see the new data. You can do it either way. But here are attachments. These are attached documents. There could also be attached email conversations and any comments, just a couple. Now this is a finished thing, but this is a case. It's all of the details that I need in order to work on this item. It's in a nice tidy package. The whole thing is secured with one set of privileges. The thing has one status that applies to everything. And in fact, if we go look at the version history, you'll see where changes were made at every step. In fact, you could see this even for the detail line items. Those were the two items, there were none here, there are two here, and it looks like it never changed after that. You can see changes to the comments. You can see changes to the attachments. In fact, the attachments are being versioned along with everything else in the case. And if you would just prefer to watch the form evolve, this is what it looked like as it moved back and forth between the submitter and the reviewer until it was finally approved, at which point there were 3 attachments involved. It's a really nice approach. I secure it in one place. I migrate it with one step. I archive it as one step. This behaves like a document when you want it to, and it behaves like a set of linked database items if you need it to for reporting purposes. Everybody wins. This is a common theme to the way we do things in WEBCON land. Consistency in a big, big way. You want consistency? I'm going to show you consistency in a couple of ways. First of all, this was our purchasing request environment. 2 columns, nothing at the top or the bottom, lots of data grouped, some of it in tabs and so on and so forth. Let me see, if I go over here, this is for working on vendor maintenance and so on. And again, I've got top, bottom, left, right. I've even got a table of which items have changed most recently. If I want to look at something a bit more ambitious, how about this solution for elder care marketing? And look, I've got tabs, I've got lots of repeating data and so on. However, the colors are changing, the logos are changing, the layout is changing to some extent, but none of it is unfamiliar. If a user learns how to use one WEBCON application, she or he is going to have no trouble understanding and using the next one. So that would be point of consistency number 1. It's consistent across applications. But we can do even more interesting things than that. How about I go here to, where was it? We had something called risk management. How about consistency about where things live? So here I have risk management living inside of our own portal. And why do we have our own portal? We have our own portal so that in one click, I could see all of my tasks across all of my processes. I could see all of my applications in one location. And if for some reason I don't use Microsoft 365 or SharePoint server on premises or something like that, I still have a web location to go to in order to see everything I've got. But all of these user interface elements, start buttons, task counters, table reports, charts, and so on. I'm looking at this in our website, but here I've got the same elements showing up as web parts that look both like WEBCON and like SharePoint sitting inside of a page in a SharePoint site. They're individual web parts. I configure them as web parts. Here I am living in Microsoft Teams, and there's a group that focuses on risk management, and here are all of our open risk management cases. And here are some of those charts and graphs to see where we are in the process in a couple of different. In fact, if I want to see the entire risk management dashboard in one place, there it is. And if I'm just living my life in email and I get an announcement of something I need to do, the form pops up along the side and I can work. You obviously have to install an Outlook add-in to do this. But yeah, you can interact with email notifications and go straight to the form. You can just reply to buttons embedded in the email. Look, that all works. Email approvals are absolutely a feature of ours. And you can make the notification emails extremely customized. This was just a standard one where we spit out all of the data in the form in a linear fashion, because we were assuming that people had the add-in and all they really wanted to do is go straight to here to work on the item, which is actually quite nice. This is very similar to the way it looks in a mobile solution. In fact, this is us living in mobile land. So here I am. What were we working on before? Well, let's see, we were doing purchasing stuff, right? So here's that purchasing dashboard. And how about I open up this item? And here is that same request that I had done before. So a very consistent experience, whether I am working on a mobile device or working on a laptop or a desktop. This is what it looks like if you're using our shared software as a service environment. Same kind of experience, whether you are a user or a designer. This is what it looks like on premises. Same deal. Essentially, this is designed to be incredibly consistent, literally everywhere. Clarity is a big deal, because if you are going to build a business process and you have users, being able to explain to them what's going on is important. The other thing about clarity is that it is important for your stakeholders to understand the work you've done. If I need to use one tool to actually do the work and a different tool to diagram and map and explain the work, eventually those tools are going to get out of sync. We don't have a separate tool for process mapping versus workflow design because our stuff does double duty. And this is a common theme. You can have your cake and eat it too. You get to have it both ways. Check this out. Let's go back to this process. So let's do this. These are leave requests. It's not a fancy process. I'm an employee. I put in the type of leave I want to take, a start date, return date, et cetera, et cetera. Let's go here to our workflow designer. It lives inside of the HR group. And here's my leave request process. I built this in such a way that I should be able to show this to my stakeholders and they will understand what's going on. So when someone prepares a leave request, they submit it. It then goes to their manager for review. The manager might reject it. The manager might approve it. If you want explanations as to what's going on everywhere, they show up as pop-up or tooltip text. If it's approved, it goes to the Human Resources Department for further review, and they could reject or approve it. If it's approved, then we say it is approved. But we also say it's possible, even after approved, to cancel it and move it back to canceled. This could be initiated possibly by the employee who decides not to take the leave, at least not at that time, or perhaps there's some sort of emergency requiring HR, the manager, to cancel it for them. Oh, by the way, yes, when we reject, we send it back to the author of the request. The author can at some point just withdraw it, cancel it, and get rid of it. I think anyone should be able to follow this. It's not particularly difficult. It's not to say that there isn't a lot of stuff going on. In fact, everywhere you see one of these little gear icons, there's a bunch of things happening as we move along a path. So here, for example, if on that final approval, we're manipulating somebody's Exchange server calendar to add an out of the office period, we set up auto reply and schedule it to take place then. Then we set up for workflow tasks, substitution rules. So while, for example, I'm out of the office, my designated substitute will get all of my requests. That can vary per application and such. And our substitution rules, you get to choose how all that handles. Like when I come back to it, does everything revert to me or does it stay with the substitute? There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. One level beneath the surface. It's like peeling the layers of an onion. One level underneath the easily understood part are all the implementation details. You can understand this. The reports, easy to understand. The forms, easy to understand. What's going on here in the process, very easy to understand. And in fact, it is possible to generate automatic documentation that define the entire process. All that work we did to create friendly text for tooltips, all of that gets reused inside of automatically generated documentation. And yes, this is based on a template, and yes, you can change the template. But here is an explanation of every field, every step in the process, every acronym involved, every rule defined, everything. So automatic documentation using the same metadata and also using our document generation tech. So when you combine the fact that we put the process first with instant change, with cases, with extreme consistency and extreme clarity, that adds up to a wonderful way to workflow. Something we like to call the WEBCON way. And with that, I'd like to thank you very much for attending this. And if you'd like to get in touch with me, Mike Fitz at webcon.com. And if you'd like more information about our products in general, just go to www.webcon.com. If you've got any questions, please by all means type them into the chat window. I'd love to field any questions you might have. First question is this software I install? Is this software as a service? You moved amongst several different versions. Yeah, we have consistent technology, whether you're running us on premises, on a server, whether you're running us in the cloud and virtual machines inside of, say, an Azure tenant or an AWS tenant. We also have a completely turnkey, just sign up and subscribe and it's ready to use software as a service offering. So 3 different ways to use our tech: infrastructure as a service, software as a service, or old school on-premises installed software. It's consistent tech in all three places. You can migrate applications from place to place without skipping a beat and without losing any history and without losing any current status. You can, in fact, migrate something between two tenants and keep going without any interruption in process flow. So yes, you have it your way. And you can subscribe to it or you can buy it. Any other questions? I'm not seeing anything new. That one question was a good one. Thanks very much for that. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for attending. Have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening. We have another webinar coming up very, very shortly. Check your mailboxes. This one will be all about tasks and task management. Have a good day. Bye.